Accuracy will always win, says Peyton. Need both to succeed, says Lucy. O'Shea says it nicely. Accuracy first and speed comes later. Yeah. The big S difference, I think, between the way I approach the test and the way some other LSAT prep approaches the test is that I'm going to actually be focusing on understanding it. And in order to understand it, you just can't try for speed. It's not understand it quickly. It's understand it. And then move along, but not until you understand it. You can't just skip that part of the process. There's some links on the syllabus for today, and I want to avoid reading to you guys. So I want to have a conversation with you, but I am going to look at this blog post because there's some numbers in there. And I wrote this a few years ago, and it's just a comparison of people who go fast and less accurate versus hypothetical people who go slowly and accurately. And with the numbers that I made up, I just sort of invented a whole bunch of different examples. But with the numbers that I made up, the person going for accuracy is going to beat the person that goes for speed every time. And I think it's largely related to one thing that, Robert, you were saying. You said in the last couple of minutes, you're going to guess on whatever questions you haven't had time to get to. Those are free points. And if there are questions that are unanswered at the end of the section, that's actually a source of points for you. And, you know, it's not a huge source of points, but if you guess on 5 questions, you should be expected to get 1 of them right. And that's why going slower and having higher accuracy, one of the reasons why going slower and having higher accuracy as you go ends up resulting in more points, even though you did fewer questions, because you get more of them right and because you get some free guesses. People who do all the questions in the whole section get nothing from free guesses. Anyway, here's some numbers. What was I looking at first here? Right, so Mr. Speed attempts every question and gets half of them right. Ms. Accuracy attempts only half of the questions but makes no mistakes. Who scores higher? And it's not actually even close. Ms. Accuracy on a section would get 15 questions correct, where Mr. Speed would get 12.5 on average out of 25 correct. That's because Ms. Accuracy is getting paid for the work that she's doing, where Mr. Speed is doing a lot of work that results in 0 pay, none whatsoever. That's really the point of this entire lesson. If you look at higher numbers, so people who are getting further into the section but accurate versus people who are finishing the section but have slightly less accuracy, it also works at the very low levels. That if you're, let's say you're trying to break 140 for the first time, I guarantee that if you're trying to break 140 for the first time, your problem is that you're just not getting enough of them correct of the ones you're doing. Everybody thinks that they need to finish these sections, but they really don't. And in fact, most people would be better off if they did not finish the sections. So I think it results in more points today, but it also results in a faster way to improve to get more points tomorrow. This is only about how Ms. Speed is going to always score higher today. Oh, sorry, Ms. Accuracy is always going to score higher today, which is great. But she's also, because she's solving the questions, she's figuring them out, she's getting them right. She's actually building up a lot of confidence so that she can she's really understanding the test, and she's gonna understand the test more and more. She's not practicing making mistakes. I think that's my biggest problem with you guys trying to finish the sections. If you do the whole section and you only get 15 or 16 of them correct or something, wow, okay, so you missed 9 or 10 questions. You're just you're practicing like wasting your time. Somebody talk to me. You guys must have questions. You're here for a reason, right? Catherine.
I'm still muted. Okay, good afternoon. Okay, so one thing that I've been doing lately is just like even turning off the timer and making sure that I'm reading for understanding. And I've noticed I get to like number 20 to 21 before I have to guess anyway. So I don't know if that's recommended, but that like has been feeling better for me because I get the 5-minute warning anyway.
Yeah, so specifically our advice for how to do your timed sections, and everybody should be doing timed sections pretty regularly as part of your LSAT practice. When you do your timed sections, you start the 35-minute timer, you click the clock disappears. Then you work for 30 minutes. Then when the 5-minute warning, it'll actually interrupt you. The clock comes back. It comes back onto the screen and you have to like accept, okay, 5 minutes left. Then the clock continues ticking down. I'm talking about what it does on the LSAT Demon and what it does on the official test anyway. The clock will stay there now for the last 5 minutes. I still don't want you looking at the clock during those last 5 minutes, but what I do recommend is that you just go ahead and guess right then. So when the 5-minute warning hits, you can use that as your marker to say, okay, I'm on number 21. Let me just put D, 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 D to the end of the section. Now I'm going to go back to number 21 and I'm going to actually answer it correctly. And probably it's not D, so I'll change my answer to whatever it is. And then if I have time, I'll do number 22. But that way I don't have to monitor the time anymore, because when time's up, time's up. And all I'm going to look at is I'm just trying to figure out one more question. And that's all you should ever be doing. On minute 1 and on minute 31 and on minute 35 of your time sections, you should be focusing on one question at a time and answering that question correctly. That's all you have to do. You don't have to do the whole test at once. You have to do one question at once. And you just have to make sure that you're getting it right. Nate, there's no LSAT Demon recommended guessing strategy. I was always on team D. Eric says he was on team C. It really doesn't matter. I just like having a letter, so I don't have to even think about it. It's just like bang, bang, bang. Don't do the dumb thing where you count up the answers in the section, by the way, and then try to pick a letter that hasn't been chosen very often. You don't know that you got all those questions right. And anyway, they don't have to have an exactly, fair distribution of answer choices or anything like that. So yeah, please don't do it that way. Madison, as a beginner, I don't know how many questions you should be getting to. You should get to as many as you can answer with accuracy. And if that's only 8 or 9 of them at a very beginning level, that's great. If it's only 4 or 5 of them, that's fine. I mean, did you get the first one right? Yeah, okay, cool. Did you get the second one right? No? Oh, okay, well, that's not going to be successful. We have to slow down and figure these questions out. We have to get a long string of correct answers from the beginning of the section. Eventually, you'll learn enough about the test that you'll be able to go faster, but not from trying to go fast. You go faster from trying to understand. Judah and then Priscilla.
I've heard you say before that you want to try, like, depending on your score, you want to try to get the first 10 right or the first 15 right, specifically of like logical reasoning. And then you said earlier on tonight that like you might not have any business trying to finish a section and you don't necessarily need to. And I guess what I'm wondering is like, if I only get the first 10 right, how am I going to get a good score or improve my score if it's 10 out of like 20 some odd questions in logical reasoning?
It's not going to happen overnight, but you need to get to whatever your goals are. You're going to get there by understanding questions and by getting them right. What I'm suggesting is baby steps. I'm suggesting if you can't get the first 10 right, then maybe you should actually do fewer. You know, can you get the first 5 right? Because if you can't get the first 5 right, then I don't care what happens on number 25. Like what happens later in the section, you already lost if you're missing lots of the earlier, easier questions in each section. So it's not going to be like tomorrow you have the LSAT score of your dreams, but it is going to position you to learn more about the test. You'll be actually understanding the questions. You'll be figuring out the questions. You'll be mad at yourself when you miss a question because you're trying to build this long string of correct answers at the beginning of every section. Once you're able to do that, when you have the accuracy, then you're just going to start going faster naturally because you're going to be predicting the answers at half of the questions. Priscilla and then Brenda.
I had a situation where in my reading comprehension section, the first passage was a legal passage. And I took 14 minutes in that passage and I didn't get to the last one. But in blind review, I did the last passage and I got them all right compared to the first passage where I still like got those 4 questions wrong. So I was just wondering, like, I know that in logical reasoning, it makes more sense to like go in order since the level of difficulty is increasing, but I don't know if you recommend that in reading comp or logic games, you do the games first that are more familiar to you or the passages that are more familiar to you.
Nope. I want you doing the passages basically in order. I mean, if you're not going to do all 4 passages, then you can skip one of them. But I would never skip the first passage because I do think that the first passage tends to be on the easy side. I mean, Priscilla, maybe you had an exceptional section there, or for whatever reason, you were just bouncing off that legal studies, legal issues one that day. But I think you're going to be better off just presuming I'm going to do passage 1, then I'm going to do passage 2, then I'm going to do passage 3. I suppose if you feel yourself slipping where you're like, I hate this passage, I really don't want to do this passage, then maybe you can just skip that one passage, but don't go to the next one, hate that one too, then like go back. You know, you've got to, if you're going to do that strategy, you've got to just like, okay, that's not going to be the one, I'm letting it go. But then you have to do whatever comes next. You just have to accept it and you have to figure it out. I would not skip around, and I definitely wouldn't skip around on games either. Brenda, then Daisy.
Hi, I was just wondering if you could break down a study strategy for like logic games in particular, where I specifically get sometimes -0, sometimes -2, or sometimes -5 if I totally don't get a game. And I've been practicing timed sections a lot, and it just kind of varies. But I'm so close to getting perfect that I keep practicing timed sections because I think I'm almost there, but I don't know if that is really the best strategy if I keep having slip-ups like that.
I love it. No, I think that's perfect. You're right on the edge of it. I mean, you've got to, yeah, I would just keep doing that. Obviously, review your games untimed, but continue to do timed sections of games. I love that. Yeah, you're not going to be afraid of it. You're going to be really used to the feel of it. You're going to get used to rolling with those punches, which is critical. No, I think that all sounds fantastic. Daisy and then Erica.
So going back to time sections, should we be reviewing like going back once we're done, right after we're done, or to understand which ones we got wrong and why we got them wrong? Should we go right after we're done with the time section?
I always say as soon as possible. Yeah, I mean, you know, the idea is I did my best on these questions. I got as close as I could to understanding each one of them. I chose answers that I thought were, you know, I only picked an answer because I thought it was correct. And I should get them all right. And then when you score it and you see that you actually missed some of them, then you should be intensely interested in wanting to figure that out. I mean, that's where the clicks are going to happen. We've been talking about clicks a lot lately on our podcast and in classes. Ben and I both have been thinking about this idea that that's really what we're going for. Is we're going for, hey, you didn't understand it, and now you do. You felt that click, that light bulb moment where you went, oh, I see. Oh, okay, got it. 100% makes perfect sense. Every one of those clicks is going to pay off in the future. I mean, there's just not that much to the LSAT really. It's a matter of tuning in like to the frequency of the LSAT and just and really kind of understanding what they're asking you. But section and then review, because the review is where the clicks are at. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Erica, then Ashley.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, I'm a big fan of yours. Thank you for everything that you do. Okay, so tomorrow, I've been studying since March, and I have not taken a diagnostic. I was too chicken to take it. And tomorrow, I was thinking about taking my first practice test. Should I rip the Band-Aid off and just do it? And do it without worrying about, like you said, about not worrying so much about completing each section?
Yes.
Or, yes, okay.
Yes.
I'm
For
scared.
sure, 100%. You should be, you've got to, I can tell, I mean, you're like, the test has all this, it's a big, scary thing. It's got like this power over you. And that's simply because you haven't been exposing yourself to it enough. So just do the test. Don't try to finish any of the sections.
Okay.
Just do one question at a time. I mean, that's all I'm ever going to tell you at every level of LSAT. I'm going to tell you, what does that say? What does it mean? Can you figure it out? You're getting that question right. You totally understand it. It makes perfect sense, right? Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's do another one. And it's not about racing the clock. I don't care what you score tomorrow, Erica. You shouldn't care what you score tomorrow. It's just your first test. It doesn't count. It's a practice test. You can completely crash and burn. Who cares? By the way, you can also completely crash and burn on the real thing because law schools only care about your highest score anyway. So this isn't something that we should be afraid of. This is something that we should practice regularly and get as good as we can get at it. But if you're not doing time sections and full-time tests, sometimes I don't really care that much about full-time tests, honestly. I care about individual timed sections, and in the LSAT Demon, you can just merge those sections together if you care about your 120 to 180 LSAT score. But you've got to just be able to start the section and then completely ignore the clock. That's really what we're trying to learn. And the best way to learn that is to regularly time yourself.
Okay.
Okay. And just don't worry about it. Like whatever your scores are, who cares? Like I don't care. No one cares. But you know, the only thing that's ever going to matter is your highest official score on record. So I don't give a shit. Like none of your practice tests, I don't care at all. Your previous LSATs where you didn't do very well, I don't care. The law schools don't care. They care what the highest is that you're capable of, and we can get you there.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Erica. Jermaine, then Aisha.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey.
Oh, sorry, my bad. So I've been studying, I would say, with y'all for about closer to a month now. And I was looking at previous YouTube videos from Ben, and he was saying that he would advise that you do a game 5 to 10 logical reasoning questions, as well as a reading comp passage per day if it fits within that high quality 1 or 2 hours. But something that I noticed is that it does feel jam-packed a lot of the times. And also on top of that, I feel like, you know, I'm not truly understanding that full section. So what would you advise for me to kind of feel like if I truly understand that section, a better way to do so?
Well, you have to figure out how much you can do while still, you know, thoroughly reviewing and understanding everything you do. So if one game, one RC passage and however many 5 LR questions, if that's too much for an hour, then you just got to cut back on it. So I don't know, you could alternate the sections, you know, drop one of them out or something and then just rotate through them. Or you could cut a couple LR questions, or, you know, skip a day of reading comp, or skip a day of, I don't know, whatever, something like that, to just find your own balance.
All right, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jermaine. Aisha, then Ashley.
Yeah, thanks. I've been working for about a month as well, and I feel I'm plateauing at around 70s. And I asked this question as well, and it was a little bit answered, but now I'm having trouble with question levels 4 and 5. And I've been doing them and I get them wrong. I read the explanation and I understand it, or I think I do. And then when I go to do them again, they're wrong again. So I'm just wondering, just more exposure, is that what will help? Or I kind of feel like it's a different type of thing each time. So I'm kind of starting to feel that, oh, each time I get a level 4 or 5, I'm likely to get it wrong. So is it just an exposure game? Should I just keep exposing myself and one day it'll start clicking, or what?
Well, that's certainly a part of it, Aisha. Yeah. I mean, the more you do of it, the better you're going to just get tuned into it. And we're lucky, you know, that we have so many practice questions. In law, this is how it is in law school too. Like, they really don't hide any secrets or anything. You can go check out your professors, like you can go check out their old exams at the library, at the law library. You can study their old exams. The LSAT is kind of that way too, right? Because we can study the old exams, and we have close to 100 of the real actual LSAT tests. They were all the official test in their day. That's all we ever look at, right? Is real LSAT questions. And there's, like I said, there's like 100 of them. There's roughly 10,000 questions to look at. And you don't have to do all 10,000 of them. But when you do, let's say, 500 of them or 1,000 of them, you're going to start tuning in. So right now it seems like it's a different thing every time, but eventually you realize it's the same thing every time. That, you know, every LR question, what are you telling me? What are you asking me? Can I predict the answer based on what you've told me and what you've asked me? Can I predict the answer? And take it from there. But that you'll just find yourself predicting the answers much more frequently the longer you do it. I think you're doing the right thing, Aisha, with the written explanations. Have you been using the ask button at all?
Yep.
Cool.
And sometimes it helps, but I get an answer pretty quickly, so I appreciate that as well. But most of them, I feel like I get it, and then I get it wrong again. So maybe I'll just do more. I'll just eat, breathe, and sleep these questions.
And just make sure that you're understanding each one, right? It's not about volume, it's about clicks. So those questions that you miss, you gotta review it thoroughly enough that you feel the, oh yeah, okay, totally, I get it, makes perfect sense. Then try a next one. Or try another one. Thank you, Aisha. Ashley, then Katie.
Hi. Okay, so my I guess the issue that I'm having is I did a practice test to kind of identify what's my strong suit and what's my weakness. And I can pretty much get through logic games, and I've improved on the LR section, but the reading comprehension section remains a struggle for me. Like you say, I try not to like focus on the time or how, but I try to be mindful too of how much time it's taking me to get through the passage. And then I always try to I find myself always resorting back to the passage to answer the questions. So I guess what I'm saying is, what tips do you have in regards to just like working through those questions without spending so much time on the
What did you-
actual?
Yeah, thank you. What did you say your best section was?
Logic games.
Logic games. Why are the games better for you than reading comp?
I think, well, I don't really know. I don't know if I find it more interesting.
You find the logic games interesting?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like it makes me think outside of the box, and I think because it's a little more complex, like it's easier for me to grasp.
Okay.
So then I also too, like I have ADHD, so I notice a difference when I study without my medication and when I do it with as well.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you obviously have to pay attention to that. If you should probably study with the level of medication that you intend to take the actual test with. I would imagine. I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
Yeah.
But, that I think probably consistency is going to be key on that part. On the other part, Ashley, what I want to I want you to try something for me, okay? Which is see if you can treat the reading comprehension more like logic games.
Okay.
Okay, so you said that games is interesting. You said that games is fun. You said it's a little bit more complex. I would argue that the reading comp is actually a more complex game than that, because the puzzle, the way all the pieces fit together on the reading comp, it's much more amorphous. There's 14, 15 sentences worth of stuff as well, instead of just a few sentences of simple rules. So, maybe you can get engaged. And I know that this is an issue for people with ADHD in particular, that you've got to be interested in it in order to do well at it.
Right.
And so it's great that you're interested in the games. You have to find a way to get interested in the reading comprehension passages, and maybe treating it like a little more of a logic puzzle would help with that.
Okay, because I was kind of having the same problem with logical reasoning as well. And I don't know if it's because the passage itself is shorter. Like, I don't know, like I've been doing like the drills and things like that for logical reasoning. And I noticed like I've been doing a lot better in regards to answering the questions. But for whatever reason, I can't, like my score and things are not improving with reading comprehension. So I will try that strategy.
Okay, cool.
Maybe an approach.
Yeah, give it a shot. Thank you. Thank you, Ashley. I didn't hear that last bit. Let's go to Katie and we can come back if we need to.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great, excellent. So I just wanted to ask you a little bit about like my strategy, what I should do next.
Okay.
My like worst section is logical reasoning. I've been kind of experimenting with my strategy of like how I'm going to do it. And I think I just kind of had my best section yet. I got -2 for accuracy. I never finished. I got like up to 14. So it's a little bit frustrating that like I still got -2. I only got up to 14. And then when I went to review, I was able to do 15 to 25 perfectly. Like untimed. So I'm kind of just like wondering like what I should focus my energies on next, like getting those first 14 perfect, or like maybe like trying to pick up a few more next, or what you think I should do from there.
Well, what about the 2 that you missed? What did you do with those?
I reviewed them.
Tell me how you reviewed them.
Well, I reviewed them with the demon. Like I went over them and I reviewed them with a demon, and then I met with a friend and we went over the logical reasoning section and we also reviewed them. And then I like to write a wrong answer journal where I like elaborate on ones that I got wrong.
So what kinds of mistakes did you make? You said you only missed 2, so they must stand out. Like what were those mistakes?
I actually don't remember. So I guess that's not a good sign. I don't remember. They're probably flaws. Like I probably make like simple reading errors maybe that like I should fix. Like for example, today I was doing a reading comprehension thing and I like took a disagrees and I read it as an agrees and I made a mistake there. The 2 that I missed, pulling it up right now, this one is a supported and the other one is a sufficient assumption.
Yeah, but so that's not, I mean, I care much less about what types of questions you're missing. I care much more about what types of mistakes are you making. And I mean, the only thing you've told me so far is that you think you might have just misread stuff.
Oh.
I mean,
okay. So you think I need to do better like analysis on what I'm getting wrong?
Unless you actually did just misread things. And if you actually just misread things, the only way to fix that problem is to stop doing that. Like you have to be careful enough. Like you're apparently able to be careful when you're untimed, but you've got to figure out how to be careful while you're timed. And you know, you're doing fewer questions, which I think is great. You know, 12 out of 14. Okay, give yourself a little pat on the back. That's great. But those 2 that you missed, like, what's up? Why didn't you get them right? You went very slowly, very carefully. You still missed a couple questions. What's going on? And, you know, 13 out of 13 is better than 12 out of 14. So if they're so easy to fix when you go back and review them and you go, oh, I just misread that. Oh, I just misread this other one. Well, then you got to do fewer questions because 13 out of 13, it's literally a higher score than 12 out of 14. Plus, you'd still get to guess on number 14 and get it right 1 out of 5 times.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome, Katie. Thank you for your question. Anybody else?
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Of course.
Is there any like benefit to going back and like redoing logic games? Because I feel like sometimes if I like start a new logic game, then there's like all these like new sets, but I've been like going back and doing ones that like I, miss maybe 3, I'll go back and like do it again, maybe like a couple days later, and then I'll try to like make sure that I have a better understanding of like how to apply rules. But would it be better to just focus on like new games after I review it initially?
Yeah, I'm in favor of doing new questions almost always. I'm in favor of reviewing missed questions. Yes, you should redo missed questions and you should redo games that you struggled with. If you got stuck on let's say you did a timed section and you got stuck on the first game or the second game or whatever, we got to figure out why you're getting stuck there and think about some ways that you could have solved that puzzle. Same thing on logical reasoning. If you miss a logical reasoning question, I just want you to dig in there immediately. What's up? How did I miss this question? And I want you to feel the click. So I like the click way, way better than a wrong answer journal. Wrong answer journal isn't necessarily clicks. That's just like this, I guess, description of the question that you missed. And if you think like writing down the question type and that kind of thing is going to help you in a wrong answer journal, I don't think so. I think that what we really need to be doing is feeling it. Don't write it down in a wrong answer journal because you don't understand it. actually understand it, actually feel it. And then once you feel it, I think you can kind of move on. Games, so that's for logical reasoning and reading comp both. For games, I mean, I think you should just be like doing the games all the time. Okay, so yes, you should be doing old games, but you should also, yes, be doing new games. Games. Always lots of games.
Okay, thank you.
Best bet there, yep. All right, Gina and then Grace.
Hi, so I think one thing that I've noticed is maybe like once or twice at most, there'll be like a vocab word that like I don't know the meaning of, and it kind of trips me up on time. And then when I go back and review the question, like my understanding was fine, but then me not knowing what that word meant was why I missed the question. So like, I guess, how do you deal with that issue of like just words that you don't really know just popping up and messing you up on time?
You can get questions right even when there's one word in there that you don't understand. They very frequently give definitions right there in the logical reasoning passage, or especially in the reading comprehension, they give definitions all the time. So unfamiliar vocabulary, they might still tell you enough about that unfamiliar vocabulary. Other times you might be able to ignore the unfamiliar vocabulary, but you understand everything else that's there and it makes sense anyway. It could have just been like an adverb or something, and it was just like, yeah, that was an embellishment. It doesn't have anything to do with the actual facts, so you don't have to understand that question. So I guess just don't be so quick to be like, oh, I didn't understand that word, so I'm going to miss it. Like I was in a one-on-one tutoring session just earlier today, and I saw a student read a word that he clearly didn't know, and it was sort of like, oh boy, like, oh no. And it like didn't really have any bearing on how to figure out the right answer. It was just not that important of a word. It was an unfamiliar word, but it just really didn't matter that much. The other thing I would say is that, if it is actually true that there was just, you had to know the definition of that word in order to understand this question, which I guess that can happen from time to time. Well, today's the day that you learned that word, and you should be trying to learn as many words as you can, kind of constantly. I think, a vocabulary builder could be a great idea, or just look words up in the dictionary. You guys need to be looking up words. When you read and when you write, you should be looking up words in the dictionary, because we don't know the, dictionary definition of most of the words that we ever use. You don't stop to like really think about it. But by reading regularly over a long period of time, and by writing, and by looking up words, you just will develop a better vocabulary. But it's not like there's some list of Lsat vocab or something that you could go memorize. It just doesn't work that way. It's a test of the whole English language.
Yeah, I've just been like, I had like a Quizlet that's been going, and then every time I don't know a word, I'll like write it down and then just like study it over and over again, which helps.
Sorry, I'm getting blinded by my window. Yeah, okay, that's great. I mean, it seems like you're moving in the right direction. It's not going to happen overnight, Gina. That's going to be like a just long-term battle. Good news is, like, you're going to be using these words 40 years from now in the end of your legal career, and the words that you're learning today are still going to be there for you when your powers have reached their height. Grace, and then Zara.
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yep.
My question is, I've been getting to about 3 out of 4 of the sections on logic games when I do a practice test. But my question is, I'm not getting 100% on those 3 out of 4 sections. I'm getting most of them right, but I know that I'm always going to be able to get that first question in a section correct. So when I get like that 5 minutes, I typically go to try to at least get that first question in the 4th section. Do you not recommend that?
I hate it, actually. I hate it. It's only 1 point. The game you're working on is worth 5 or 6 points.
But if I feel like I might not know some of those harder ones at the end of the game?
Nope. Well, first of all, the questions don't even get harder at the end of the game. The questions on the games are just easy, period. There can be a rule substitution question from time to time that is harder, but don't worry about rule substitution questions so much that, I mean, they're only on like 0, 1, or 2 games per section even have that question. So it's 0, 1, or 2 questions per test. So in other words, it's really not your biggest concern. And yeah, I definitely don't think that they scale up in difficulty within each game. I definitely think that the games at the end of the section tend to be harder game by game. The games are harder. I just hate the idea that you're going to break your concentration. Like presumably you were solving your way through a game, you know, you're solving your way through game 3, and sure, it's slow going, but I mean, you're figuring them out, you're getting them right. And then 5-minute warning, oops, okay, so let me totally put down all this work mentally. Let me go over here and start picking up individual pieces of the puzzle from this 4th game so that I can get that one measly point. And then what do? Do you go back to the game that you were on before? So you forget all that stuff about the game that you just learned. You go back to the game that you had already previously learned. You probably now have to refamiliarize yourself with what's going on in that game. Then you answer those couple of questions. And now what do? Oh, I have a couple minutes left. Let me go back to the 4th game, which you had previously just dipped your toe into. And now you got to relearn that system. So definitely not. I would never.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. That's a great question. Thank you for asking it. You know, I think that's progress to just realize, oh, wait, that's totally counterproductive. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to solve this system and I'm going to get paid for solving that system. Then I'm going to move on to the next system and get paid for solving that system as well. There are games where, I mean, there are game 4s that are very, very easy. There are game 1, 2, 3s, and 4s that are very, very easy. And it's not uncommon that it takes you 31 minutes to do the first 3 games and you think you're behind schedule, but then the 4th game, it's just a piece of cake and you do the game and all the questions in 4 minutes and you finish the section on time anyway. It's totally possible, but you can't be skipping around because you're just wasting too much energy digging into a system, then out of it in a different system, and then back and forth, and it really is inefficient. Zara, then Sarah.
Hi. So I just wanted to confirm and clarify, like, the best method for reviewing logic games. Were you saying, like, don't go in and redo them, like basically drill them till you have it nailed, or just like read them, recognize your mistakes, and just do the clicks, not physically do them?
So I would do a game until you feel like, okay, I understand how I could have gotten to the solution as efficiently as possible, right? The thing to understand about games is that there are several ways to solve all of the questions correctly for every single game, all right? When I have in my classes, which by the way, at the top of the hour, I have a 2-hour Lsat class for Lsat Demon Live subscribers. I know I will see many of you there. When I do a game in that class and I have the students submit their scratch paper so I can see a picture of their scratch paper, and their scratch paper varies wildly, even among people who are doing really, really well at the games. So I would, if you didn't crush a game, if you did crush a game, fine, don't even look back at it. If you struggled a little bit with the game, if you missed any questions, of course, but if it took you forever and you just knew that you were missing something, that's the click that you need to go for. And the way you go for that click is by trying the game again, maybe in a slightly different way, try it in some other different way, try to come at it from various different angles. You can watch videos to see various different approaches. You can come to class and ask questions in class about different approaches. But once you see like, oh, okay, I see, this would have been a really good way. If I would have put these things together, I could have totally unlocked the game there, got it. And then I would just move on. I don't know that there's that much value in coming back and doing that game again. It doesn't hurt you, but then again, there are 400 roughly logic games in our test bank, and we would like to expose ourselves to as many of those as possible before we sit down for the official test, right? And if we're going for perfect on the games, which I think we all should be going for perfect on the games, then we need to not be surprised when they roll out, new stuff that's not new. They did that back on prep test 19 or whatever it is. And the people who have done all of the work then are like just really never surprised. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, cool. Great. Let's see. Grace still has a hand up. Oh, okay. Sarah.
Yeah, hi. I guess my questions may be a little similar. I wanted to know how to apply the accuracy over speed to logic games. And I guess the part that I have the most trouble with is initially building the board correctly, or I don't know. You just said there's no correct way, but I guess I kind of have a hard time deciding.
Yeah, there are many correct ways. You need to improvise. So you need to just, but don't look for the one way. Rather, treat it like a common sense puzzle. Like you got to kind of get out of Lsat brain and get into, hey, if I'm at work and this is my job, how do I solve this thing? And you have common sense ways of solving these things. So use your common sense. Would you make a picture to solve this? Maybe, yeah, you'd get out a piece of paper and write some stuff down to try to see it. Yeah, okay, do that. And however you see it in your head, that's great. Just do that. And then it's just a matter of, after that, it's just a matter of practice. So again, 400 games available. I haven't asked anybody yet this question yet today. Sarah, how many games do you think you've done?
Definitely fewer than 50, maybe around 40.
Yeah, so you're looking at roughly like 10% of all the games that have ever been, that are available to us. And we have all of them, and we have videos for every single one of them. And so it is the kind of thing where more is more, and you're not going to run out of work to do. And if you're not yet perfect, then I guess what's your excuse for not getting that work done? And if you're telling me, oh, well, no, I'm 10% of the way through, but I'm going to keep going until I reach my goals, then great. But if you're like, well, I just haven't found time to study, or yeah, I keep meaning to do that, then it's like, well, okay, you're not putting in the work. I don't know why you expect to be able to excel in this competitive area. Does that make sense, Sarah?
Sure. Yeah, I guess I was another part of my question is, should you ever abandon a board if it stops making sense and try to redraw the game?
Oh, for sure. You have to make sense of it. What would you do in real life if this was your job again, and you're trying to solve this puzzle and you've been working on it for a while, and then you realize that your thing doesn't make any sense, you effed it up somehow, and you can't even remember what steps you took to get there, then yeah, you probably need to reboot. I mean, it's really important that you learn this about logic games, actually, that they all make perfect sense. Every single one of them in all of LSAT history has made perfect sense. You can answer every question correctly just using the words that are on the page. You can predict the answer to many of those questions. And they all have that in common, that they all make perfect sense. So you just have to remember that if it's not making sense, it's because you're not making sense of it. Like you've misinterpreted something. You've probably misread something. It's probably really simple. That's the point I'm trying to get around to, is that the fix is probably really simple. There was something that you didn't understand. There was something that you failed to read. There was something that you misread. And now all of a sudden the game doesn't make sense. Well, that's because you made just one little misstep and now it doesn't make sense. okay, can I reconstruct it? And yeah, starting over on a game board, hopefully you get to a point where that doesn't have to happen that often. But for now, while it is an issue, yeah, that's okay to abort. It has to make sense. Let's go Peter and then Odow.
Hey Nathan. Hey Nathan, can you hear me?
Yeah, gotcha.
Right. So my question was about RC, specifically reviewing it. So I think I have a good idea of what to do when I get a question wrong, but besides the questions I get wrong, what should I be looking for when I'm reviewing an RC passage in terms of, finding a way to improve or to be able to like build skills off of that?
The questions that you have missed. Not besides that, what else? Just that. The questions that you have missed. The test tells you what you suck at. It's very clear. It gives you very clear feedback. You either picked a correct answer or you failed to pick that answer while also picking a wrong answer. So that's 2 mistakes that you made on that one question. And you've got to dig deeper into each one of those questions. Why is the right answer right? Yeah, but why didn't you pick it? Not only that, but why is the wrong answer wrong? And why did you pick it? Because how are you going to avoid that mistake next time? There's nothing else to study. It's just that.
Right. So what about in the case where I'm doing almost all the questions that I attempt correctly, but maybe I'm just not comprehending the passage fast enough, so I'm taking too much time on the questions?
Well, you're speaking, you're like, it's cross purposes. What you just said there was like, I didn't comprehend the passage fast enough. So then I had a hard time with the questions. No, it's you didn't comprehend the passage well enough. It's not the time that you spent on the passage. It's the time that you wasted on the questions. And that's because you didn't, 2 things, I guess. You didn't read the passage carefully enough in the first place. 2, you didn't predict the answers to the questions. When they ask you, what did it say in the passage about XYZ? Cover up the answer choices and think about what they said in the passage about XYZ. You have to take that moment to remember what was in the passage and go, yeah, okay, so they generally like this thing. Then try to answer the question. You'll find that just like logical reasoning, you're predicting the answer half the time on reading comp. And that's what's going to save you buckets of time that you're, currently you're like comparing wrong answer choices to each other. And instead you should be predicting that answer as much as possible. That and review your mistakes. Let's do Odow and then Michael, and then I'm going to have to go because I got class at the top of the hour.
Hi, thank you.
Hi.
I just had a quick question. So about a week or 2 ago, I did a practice section for logic games, and I saw that my accuracy was -2, but then the overall score was -11. And so I think I wasn't sure if that was because I had done the practice section, because I actually had done one on one day and then I paused it and then I came back and did it another day. So would you recommend that I don't do that to like avoid that discrepancy? Because I was really confused when I saw it at first.
I'm really having a hard time understanding your audio.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, you did, so say it again, I'm sorry, just give me the bullet points.
Sorry, okay, last week I did a practice section for logic games and I got an accuracy, it said that I got 85% correct, but then the overall score was, it said I got 52% correct, and I think it was because I had split it, because I did one on one day and I paused it, and then I went, sorry, and then I went back and I did the second part the other day.
I don't, that sounds like a technical issue with the way it processed your test. I don't understand.
It was on, I did it on Lsat Demon. I wasn't sure if maybe it was because I had split it because I was doing it at first and then I started to get tired and I just paused it and then I went back. So
Right. Abigail maybe can help with that. I mean, that just sounds like a technical issue with misscoring in the daemon or something.
Okay.
Unless I'm just totally misunderstanding your question. Okay, I got 2
No,
minutes.
it's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Email help@lsatdemon.com. We got the best help in the world. Email help@lsatdemon.com. They'll totally sort you out. Michael, and then I gotta go.
My question is very quick. I just wanted to ask you if you have any advice for when you're in the moment and you're doing a question and perhaps maybe anxiety gets the best of you. Any advice for slowing down and making sure you understand the question, whether it be in logic games, reading comp, or logical reasoning?
How to slow down in the moment?
Yeah.
While being tested?
Yes.
Huh. I think there are several ways to slow down. On logical reasoning, we have talked about 3 different chances to slow down. So once after the passage, you could even do once after the first sentence, right? So that's an opportunity to take a breath, make sure you're paying attention. Once at the end of the argument, for sure, to try to fight with it, or, you know, if it's just a set of facts, you go, okay, that's just a set of facts, but I can probably put some of those facts together. If it's an argument, you're going to be probably objecting to that argument. Then read the question, and at the question, you can take another moment to pause, right? There's a difference between strengthen and weaken. There's a difference between, I mean, if it's a sufficient assumption question, you have to figure out and predict the answer. If it's a necessary assumption question, then maybe it's not quite as hard to predict, and you just have to go into the answers looking for the one the author must agree with. But the point is, you're getting yourself, you know, primed to then evaluate the answer choices. But maybe you can find an analogy in reading comp and in logic games where it's just like, look for places, you know, every period is a stop sign, right? So that there's always that you could just stop at every punctuation and like think about what's come so far.
All right, perfect. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Michael. All right, I gotta go. I will see some of you on the other side. Eric will hang around and finish up conversations. Whatever you're having, Eric will take over and stay as long as you guys are still asking good questions. Thank you, Eric. Thanks for coming, everybody. Bye.
What about now? Can you hear me now? Better? Okay. Sorry about that. Weird issues with that other mic. Yeah, happy to answer more questions. Odell?
Hi. I'm sorry. I know this is gonna be a repeat of the question I asked earlier, but I'm not sure if maybe I just didn't explain it properly. But I had done a practice section for the logic games like about maybe 2 weeks ago, and I kind of made the mistake of like doing half of it on one day and the other half on another day. And so when I was looking at like the score, like I was looking at 2 different scores for some reason. Well, it showed me 2 different scores. Like it had like what it says under like accuracy, and it said 11 out of 13. But then the score, it said 12 out of 13. And I just wasn't sure like if that was because I had done it like on 2 different days, or if I was messing something up. Or I just
I don't know for sure. My guess is I think that for the purposes of accuracy, I think that they've built in a feature where did you guess on one?
Yeah, there were some that I guessed on. Yeah,
Okay,
I think
but did you like guess quickly? Because my thought is I think maybe they don't count the ones that it seems like you just like went quickly and guessed on. like if you just select random random answers at the end of the section. But I really don't know that for sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
I'm sorry about that. It's
That's fine.
it's one practice section. You're going to do many of them in your study.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. Question that I got on DM about how many hours you need to put in to see improvement on the logic games, because you might be in a place where you feel like you have a pretty good grasp of how to approach logic games. Maybe you're buying into our approach of building worlds for the games, but with it still just feels like it's taking a long time, and that you can't get to a full section. I think that the answer to that is really just to keep putting in practice. And my experience with the games was, even after I felt like I knew what I was supposed to be doing, it just took me a really long time. But practice of constantly doing it over months, I slowly just got smoother at the technique of building worlds and building my setups for the games. And that kind of accidentally, or without you noticing it, leads to you becoming faster. I remember when I finished my first and got my first -0 on a logic game section, it was just sort of like a surprise, because I didn't feel like I had done anything different. I hadn't noticed that I was going any quicker. It's just I had gotten smoother at my approach. How long that takes for everybody is going to be different, but I wasn't there until I had done most of the logic games that there are to do, which there are hundreds of them. So it took me, a couple months of studying an hour every day and doing logic games most day to get to a point where I felt like I was really good at the games. Any other questions from anybody about just general questions? Yeah, Chris.
Hey, Eric. Appreciate you being on tonight. I kind of had a general question about, so right now I'm not a paid subscriber, but I plan on doing that starting September 1st. I just wanted to find out, like, what are the resources I should have access to, as if I already paid for like an Lsat subscription. Should I have access to all tests in the daemon, or is this something that I should not have access to if I can't link the two?
Yeah, have you checked out the plans page? I think it's lsatdemon.com/plans, rather than try to list it out for you. I'll just link to it in chat. This should give you a pretty good rundown of what you get from the different tiers. Basically, you will see where the different plans differ on whether you get access to like our explanations for all of the tests versus only up until only like 50 of them. So a slight difference there. Between premium and live, you're getting the same access to the tests. It's just the addition of you can attend the live classes.
Gotcha. Okay, I'll double check that page. I know I was a little bit confused about like the bringing over the LSAC subscription because I already had that with another program.
Yeah. I did the same thing. I had started with someone else and already had my LSAC Prep Plus subscription. Once you sign up for the daemon, you'll have the opportunity to, I forget exactly how it works, but you'll have the opportunity to like plug in your info.
Okay.
You shouldn't need to repurchase that subscription. You just port it over.
Okay, perfect. I'll check out the link and see if I can get that straightened out. Thank you so much.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Chris. Annabelle, what's up?
Hi. I was wondering, I kind of had like two questions. One is like, how many students are in a typical daemon class? Like, are there usually like 100 people in a class, or?
Hasn't been that much. It sort of fluctuates class to class. I think I've been seeing in my classes recently upwards of like anywhere from like 30 to 50 people, maybe.
Okay, gotcha. And like, is that to one instructor, or are there multiple instructors?
To one class, like one section of a class that I might teach. Okay. I forget how many instructors there are. You can check out the like About Us page to see how many actual teachers there are. There are several, I think at least 4 live classes each day. I mean, you put in like, there are enough live classes that I actually wouldn't recommend going to all of them because you need to leave some time for your own self-study.
Okay, great. And then my second question was, is there kind of like a benchmark for knowing when you truly understand a question other than like kind of being able to explain it to someone else? I don't know.
When you understand a question, I think it is you have taken the time to understand exactly, I know I'm using the same language here, but you feel confidence that you understand the passage first, whether that's the shorter LR passage or the longer RC passage, or just the system of the logic game, that you have spent time with it up front before going into the question or questions, so that you first know what is going on. And if there are objections to be made, you have made them. And a lot of times, the more you do the test, you get so good at picking apart arguments on logical reasoning, for instance, that you can anticipate not only the right answer when you are asked the question, but you can anticipate what the question will be because you see where the gap in the argument is, and you know that the question is going to be something that gets at that gap in the argument. When it comes to knowing that you have truly understood, it, I think, comes down to a confidence that in the 5 answer choices, you know and can justify why the right answer is right and why the 4 wrong answers are wrong. And there's no second best. You're not picking between answers. You're picking the 1 right answers and are able to dismiss the wrong ones because you just know that they are not right. It's very similar to on a logic game. If you are asked for something that could be true and you look at your diagram and it appears to you as if multiple answer choices could be true based on the worlds that you've made, you know that you've messed up your setup somehow because only one of those can be true. Very similar, I think, on LR and RC. If you're debating multiple answer choices, it means you haven't understood.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it actually does. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, for sure. Happy to take more, or if you have questions that you would just want to drop in chat, I can also respond to written questions as well. Again, it really is, accuracy comes from putting the time in upfront before you even look at the question, to make sure that you perfectly understand the passage or the game setup, so that no matter what question they throw at you, and you can frequently predict what that question will be, then whatever it is that's coming, you know you'll be able to answer it perfectly because you actually understood what it is you just read. And I think a lot about moments of honesty, like personal honesty on the test, meaning you finish reading a sentence and deep down you know that you didn't understand it, and you don't want to do the work of going back to reread it because that seems hard and you're worried about time, so you would rather keep going forward. And you can fool yourself. You can do this. Like, humans are very good at fooling themselves. You can, because you don't want to do that effort, you can fool yourself into thinking, no, I understood it well enough, I'll keep going. You got to have that internal reckoning, that moment of honesty to say, nope, I didn't get it. I have to go back and reread it and not let yourself off the hook. And for me, that's really, really the key. It's similar to like anyone who works out, anyone who goes to the weight room or exercises. Let's say you're like in a plank position, you know, like the ab workout, you're in a plank position, you're trying to hold it as long as you can, and it's getting really, really hard, and you're trying to hit a minute, but it looks like you might have to tap out at 45 seconds. And you know that you could reach a minute if you just sucked it up and dealt with the pain. And you know that you could do it, but you know that nobody else in the gym knows that. They would just accept that if you dropped, they're like, oh yeah, you went as far as you could. It looks like that was really painful. I'm sure you totally maxed out what you were capable of. And you could let yourself off the hook and say that, yep, I worked out as hard as I possibly could today. When in fact, you actually know that you could have gone a little bit harder. Apologies for that if like no one else gives a shit about exercise or is a gym rat or anything. I just tend to go there a lot. I got a question here in chat. If you are truly stuck on a question during a time section, should you just guess and move on, at least during practice? I think especially during practice, you should try to understand it. I think especially during practice, when the time especially doesn't matter, you should take as long as you need. Now, like in reality, at a certain point, do you just need to pick the one that you can justify the most and move on? Probably yes, but I can't tell you how long that should be. Yeah, don't have a great, if you feel like you're truly stuck on a question, I would take a really long time before giving up. Cool, thanks. I'm glad other people's like the gym analogy, because it's true, right? You get those moments where it's like there's something kind of performative about going to the gym, where like it kind of feels good to make it look hard, and other people are like, oh, looked like that was really hard, but they don't know like how hard it actually was for you. Similar things, like you gotta be honest with yourself and actually push yourself as far as you can go, which is something I don't do in the gym often enough, I'll tell you that. Chris, you still got a hand up. Do you have another question, or is that left over from before?
Sorry about that, it was left over.
No, you're good. Another question here that I got in the chat: is it really worth drilling RC, or should you just do time sections? Yeah, of course it's worth drilling RC. I think so. Because drilling RC does the same thing for you as drilling any of the other sections does, which it allows you to focus on one passage at a time and really just like really not care about how long it takes you. I think that is really the cool thing about drilling individually, is you just like, you don't have an excuse because there's no clock. You don't have an excuse for going fast, for going too fast. And that same benefit applies on drilling a single RC section. You can hyper focus on just the one task in front of you, because really when you take a time section, it should be a series of drills. You've only got one passage, one question, one game in front of you at a time. For all you care, if you're on the first passage of a section, those other three don't exist. You're just drilling that one. And then when you're done with it, having taken as long as you needed to get it perfectly done, you go on and you drill the next passage on the section. So yeah, I think a combination of drilling and time sections for all three makes for a great balanced study schedule. Thanks, these are all great questions. All great questions.
Hey, Eric, I do have a question, but it's a little bit off topic. I don't know if you're willing to answer that, or if I should just save it for another time. Thoughts?
No, go for it.
Cool. So I was planning to apply during the 2023 fall timeframe for admission in 2024, since I'm active duty right now on a military contract. I got picked up for promotion though, and I accepted, and it kind of pushes my timeline to the right to where I have an extra year to basically study. I just wanted to get your thoughts on if I feel ready next year and I'm taking the LSAT, should I just go ahead and do it? Or do you think I should push that timeline for taking the LSAT, just plan to take it in 2025? Just for like, I know that Ben and Nathan are pretty like, you know, hey, don't take the LSAT until you're ready. But if I feel ready next year and I'm like scoring 175 or whatever.
You mean like if you're ready to take the LSAT, just go and do it. I don't think there's any reason to draw it out if you are legitimately ready to take it.
Sure.
And your practice tests are where you want them to be. Like I'm applying this cycle. I took the test last fall, so pretty far in advance. So yeah, your LSAT scores are good for 5 years, I think. I forget exactly what it is.
So yeah, just use that time next year.
Get it out of the way, especially if it means that your LSAT study and test taking doesn't have to overlap with like your other application materials, prepping that stuff. That's where I'm at right now, and I'm really glad that I don't have to worry about applying while I'm also studying for the LSAT.
Sweet. Okay. Yeah, I just keep hearing Ben and Nathan in the back of my mind. They're like, you know, don't do it till you're ready, and I'm like, okay, well, you know, as long as I'm doing it. If it's a year out, it's a year out. So
yeah, don't do it until you're ready is totally consistent with do it now, even if you're ready, if you're not applying for another year.
Sweet. Okay. No, I appreciate the input on that.
Sweet. Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Chris. Any other questions before I hop off? It can be about, admissions if you want, though I'm really not too much of an expert on that. Any other burning LSAT questions before we call it for tonight?
I do have one really quick question.
Yeah.
I initially was going to take the LSAT next month, but then I realized I wasn't really ready for it. And so I pushed it back to October, but I don't know, like, if I can really ask this question, but I still want to apply for the next cycle. And I know that Ben and Nathan are very like, I'm sorry?
Oh, so you're looking to take the test in October so that you can apply this year to start school next year, is that right?
Yeah, I was supposed to take it like months ago, but I've kind of been like not the best with maintaining a good study schedule, and every practice exam I get like a lower score, and so I just have had to push it back. But I don't know if that makes sense to do, because I know with most schools the scholarship consideration is like the deadlines are usually like really early in the year or like late in the year.
I think it's going to be different from school to school. I think obviously before the end of the year would be better than like next year. But I was in a very similar position to you last year, where I was scheduled to take the October test as my first official LSAT. And I thought I was going to do that and then apply that cycle. And I realized that by following that plan, I was telling myself that the October test was going to be my only chance to take the test, and that I was committing to applying later in the cycle. And I don't know for sure. Imagine that I got a really excellent score in October the first time I took the test, and then I applied in November. I don't know for sure that wouldn't have led to good outcomes for me. I probably would have gotten some fine offers, but I always would have wondered, what if I had just made myself that little bit better of a candidate? Because this extra year has meant nothing in the long run. So when I decided to just go ahead and commit to applying this year instead of last year, it did a couple things. It took all the pressure off me for that October test, because I knew that it didn't have to be my one and only perfect test. And then when it turned out that it was not my perfect test, and I scored fine but could have scored better, I got to take it again, and I did better the second time I took it. And now throughout the application process, it hasn't been rushed. Like, it hasn't felt rushed. I've been able to take my time, work on my resume, and research schools, and reach out to professors for letters of rec and all that stuff. That's all happened like on a different timeline from studying and taking the test, which has been a lot nicer. So yeah, I mean, you can follow that plan and hope for the best on October. But I think you'll always be asking yourself, what if?
That's true. Okay. Well, thank you. That makes sense.
Sure thing. I know it's not a fun answer to hear. I remember that feeling of like not wanting to make that decision. But this year has gone by pretty quickly. I'll tell you that much.
It has. It has.
So, question: how do you know when you're ready? When your practice scores are what you want them to be, and specifically, like when the last, arbitrarily say your last 5 practice tests, kind of your like typical average score from those last handful of practice tests are something that you would be happy with for an official test. I think the key is that you want to walk into your official test day and only need an average day from yourself. You don't want to go into test day thinking, I need to score as best as I possibly can to get the score that I want. Far better if you go into tests day and just say, all I need to do is just score an average practice test score for myself, and I'm happy with that score. So that you'd be happy in the middle of your range rather than at the top of it. Taking the test, the September LSAT, average -6 on each section, work most on LG. Sounds like you have work to do on all of them. I mean, logic games is where we find you can most reliably get to perfect on the sections. And I don't know, maybe you can get there. Maybe you can close that gap before the September test. It sounds like, I forget what the date the September test is. It sounds like the 10th. I don't like having to think. I don't think that's a strategy you should have to consider. If you're worried that there's not enough time to improve, to keep improving at all 3 sections before you take the test, and you're asking if you should focus the one where you can make the most improvement before the test, I think that's just an indication that you're not ready for that test, or you don't have your scores where you'd like them to be. So I don't know that I can give you a definite answer to that question, because I also I don't know enough about your personal situation and what kinds of mistakes you are making on the different sections to be able to advise you on where the easiest gains might be for you. I'm not sure. If you're registered for a test but feel like you could do better taking it later, is there a reason to not sit for that test? So let me read that again. If you're registered for a test but feel like you could do better taking it later, is there a reason to not sit for that test? Do your practice test scores, does it, the average of your last 5, and it's just an arbitrary number, does the average of your last 5 practice test scores indicate that you're at a place where you'd be happy with that score? Then take the test. If not, then cancel it. The reason to not do it would be to not waste that attempt. You get up to 3 attempts in a cycle and 5 attempts overall. And some people need all 5 attempts to get their best score. In fact, you should just be on the safe side and anticipate that even when you're at the point where you're happy with your practice test scores, you would want to leave yourself all 5 attempts just in case. I forget who it is, but I know Nathan tells the story of an LSAT Demon teacher who took the test 5 times and went to Yale. Matt Dumont, one of the really great teachers at the Demon, he took the test 5 times and he got a full ride scholarship to University of Maryland, and he's going to be clerking for the Supreme Court of Maryland. So allow yourself 5 full bites at the apple. Is it okay to lean more heavily on a section in practice where you're seeing the most improvements and work on others not as much? I think you can definitely weight more heavily towards a section that you think needs the most improvement. I think if you're seeing the most improvement somewhere, maybe you should be targeting those other sections where you don't feel as strong. But yeah, if there's a section that needs the most improvement, I think you can weight more of your time into that, but you should never abandon all. You don't need to study every section every day, but I think you should study every section every week for sure. You can study logic games more if you need to. I think I did that. I drilled logic games way more than the other sections, but I was still doing at least a time section in every section per week. Thanks for those of you who are hopping off. Oh, Sabina. Yeah, I'm not qualified to give you advice on that, obviously. Sorry about that, but congratulations. If you have I'm trying to think about that more. If you have like a real, like an actual hard deadline, otherwise you wouldn't take the test. I think if you know that a certain test date is going to be your like actual last chance at taking the test for a long time, as long as you're happy with your practice test scores, and you still got plenty of other attempts left over, then sure, go for it. While recognizing that you might still just, in all likelihood, you will still need to take the test again. I think myself, and I think most of the LSAT Demon teachers have taken the test multiple times, took the test multiple times before we were happy with our score. And I think we were all practice testing in the 170s before we even took it for the first time. So if that's any indication. All right, y'all. That's a half hour after, so I'm gonna take off and get dinner for myself. It's been a real pleasure getting to chat with you all. Best of luck. Nathan gives these free classes every 2 weeks, I think. So keep listening to the podcast for more info. Keep checking in on the site. And hopefully I'll see you either in another one of these or in one of my Demon Live classes sometime. Thanks all. Have a great evening.